The surgical lights were blinding. I lay on that cold operating table, my hospital gown barely covering me, and watched the nurses prepare the instruments. Through the small window in the OR door, I could see her, my granddaughter Emily, Dr. Emily Morrison. She was laughing with another surgeon, completely unaware that I could see her. Or maybe she just didn't care anymore. How did I get here? How did the woman who once held that little girl in her arms, who taught her to read, who paid for her medical school, end up lying here like a stranger she'd never met? Let me go back to where this all started. 3 months ago. I was doing fine on my own. At 68, I still had my health, my little garden, my morning walks. My husband Robert had passed 2 years earlier. And yes, the house felt too big sometimes, but I managed. I had my routines. Tuesday mornings at the community center. Thursday afternoons volunteering at the library. Simple pleasures. The pain started small. Just a twinge in my upper right abdomen after dinner. I ignored it at first. At my age, something always hurts, right? But it got worse, sharper. The kind of pain that wakes you up at 3 a.m, gasping. I knew what it was. 30 years as a general surgeon teaches you to recognize the signs. Gallbladder. Probably stones. Not immediately life-threatening, but it needed attention. I called Emily. She was a surgeon at Memorial Presbyterian, one of the finest hospitals in the state. We'd been close once, or so I thought. I'd been so proud when she followed in my footsteps. When she got accepted to Johns Hopkins, when she completed her residency, I'd been there for every milestone. "Hi, sweetheart," I said when she answered, trying to keep my voice steady despite the pain. "I hate to bother you, but I've been having some abdominal pain. Upper right quadrant. I think it might be my gallbladder." There was a pause. "Have you seen your primary care doctor?" "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. I was hoping maybe you could take a look. Order an ultrasound?" Another pause, longer this time. "Grandma, I can't just see family members as patients. It's not professional. You need to go through the proper channels." The way she said it, so cold, so clinical. This wasn't the Emily who used to curl up next to me on the couch while I read her stories. This wasn't the girl who cried on my shoulder when she didn't get into her first-choice medical school and I told her that Johns Hopkins was even better. "Of course," I said quietly. "I understand." But I didn't understand. Not really. I made an appointment with my primary care physician, Dr. Patterson. He was thorough, kind, ordered the ultrasound. The results came back within a week. "Multiple gallstones," he said, showing me the images. "You're going to need a cholecystectomy. It's laparoscopic these days, pretty routine. I'll refer you to a surgeon at Memorial Presbyterian. They have an excellent surgical team." My heart lifted a little. That's where my granddaughter works. Dr. Emily Morrison. Dr. Patterson's face lit up. "Emily Morrison is your granddaughter? She's one of the best young surgeons at Memorial. I'll make sure the referral goes to her team." The referral went through. I got a call from Memorial Presbyterian's surgical coordinator. They had an opening for a consultation the following Tuesday. I arrived early, dressed in my best blouse and slacks. I wanted Emily to see that I was taking this seriously, that I wasn't just being a demanding grandmother. The waiting room was nice, modern, nothing like the old hospital, where I'd worked for 3 decades before retiring. After 40 minutes, a nurse called my name. She led me to an exam room and took my vitals. Then I waited and waited. Finally, the door opened. Emily walked in, her white coat crisp and spotless, a tablet in her hand. She barely looked at me. "Mrs. Morrison," she said, as if I were any other patient, as if we hadn't shared Sunday dinners for the past 30 years. "Emily," I said softly. "Thank you for seeing me." She tapped on her tablet. "Your ultrasound shows multiple gallstones. You're a candidate for laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Standard procedure. The scheduler will set up a date for surgery. Will you be performing it?" I asked. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were different, harder. "I'll be part of the surgical team, yes." "Emily, Is there anything else, Mrs. Morrison?" She was already moving toward the door. "No," I whispered. "Nothing else." She left without another word. I sat there in that exam room, staring at the posters about hand washing and flu prevention, trying not to cry. The scheduler called me the next day. Surgery was set for 3 weeks out. Then she mentioned the cost. Your insurance will cover most of it, but there's a substantial deductible. The total out-of-pocket cost will be around $50,000. I felt my breath catch. 50,000? Yes, ma'am. Memorial Presbyterian doesn't participate in payment plans for elective procedures. You'll need to pay in full before the surgery date. Elective? My voice rose. I'm in pain every single day. I can barely eat without feeling sick. I understand, ma'am, but gallbladder removal is classified as elective unless you present with acute cholecystitis. Those are the hospital's policies. Robert and I had been careful with money, but $50,000 was still a massive sum. And yes, I had it. Barely. It would wipe out most of my emergency savings, the money I'd set aside for the years when I might need assisted living or home care. I called Emily again that evening. Maybe she could help. Maybe she could arrange a payment plan, or at least help me understand why the cost was so high. Grandma, I can't get involved in the billing department. That's completely separate from medical care. But Emily, $50,000. That's what quality healthcare costs, she interrupted. Memorial Presbyterian is a premier institution. If you can't afford it, maybe you should look at other hospitals. Other hospitals. She said it so casually, as if I hadn't paid for her medical school loans, as if I hadn't given her $10,000 when she bought her first house. I see, I said. Thank you for your time. I hung up before she could hear my voice break. I spent the next week trying to figure out what to do. I called other hospitals. The costs were similar, though some offered payment plans, but they also had wait times of 2 to 3 months. I was in pain now, constant, wearing pain that made it hard to sleep, hard to think about anything else. Finally, I did something I never thought I'd do. I took out a loan. At 68 years old, I signed papers that would put me in debt for the next 5 years, just to pay for a surgery that should have been straightforward. The day before my surgery, Emily's husband Marcus called. I'd always liked Marcus. He was quiet, thoughtful, nothing like the man Emily seemed to be becoming. Sarah, he said he'd never called me Grandma, and I'd always appreciated that he treated me like an equal. I wanted to check on you. Emily mentioned you're having surgery tomorrow. Yes, I said. Everything's arranged. There was a pause. She told me about the cost. Sarah, that's not right. You shouldn't have to. It's fine, Marcus. I've taken care of it. By taking out a loan, he said quietly. She told me, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I tried to talk to her, but she said it's not her responsibility to. It's okay, I interrupted, though it wasn't okay at all. Really. I'll be fine. But I wasn't fine. That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep, thinking about the little girl who used to make me Mother's Day cards with glitter and glue. The teenager who asked me how to deal with mean girls at school. The young woman who called me crying from medical school, saying she wasn't sure she could do it, and I told her she was the strongest person I knew. Where had that Emily gone? The morning of the surgery, I arrived at the hospital at 5:30 a.m. Check-in was efficient, cold. I changed into the hospital gown, put my belongings in a locker, and waited in pre-op. A nurse came in to start my IV. She was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes. Nervous? She asked. A little, I admitted. Dr. Morrison is excellent. You're in good hands. She didn't know Emily was my granddaughter. I didn't tell her. The anesthesiologist came next, explaining the procedure, asking about allergies. Then Emily appeared, wearing her surgical scrubs, her hair pulled back, a surgical cap already on her head. Doing okay, Mrs. Morrison? She asked, reviewing the chart. I wanted to say something. I wanted to ask her why she'd changed, why money mattered more than family, why she could look at me lying there, about to be cut open, and feel nothing. Instead, I just nodded. I'm okay. Good. We'll take excellent care of you. But as she turned to leave, I saw it. Just for a moment. A flash of something in her eyes. Guilt? Shame? It was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. They wheeled me into the OR. The lights, those impossibly bright lights, flooded my vision. Nurses moved around me with practiced efficiency. I could hear the beeping of monitors, the soft whoosh of the ventilation system. And then I heard a voice I recognized. Dr. James Richardson. He'd been my resident 20 years ago, smart, dedicated, one of the best students I'd ever trained. "Emily, is this patient properly prepped?" he asked, not looking up from the surgical tray. "Yes, Dr. Richardson. Everything's ready." He moved closer to the table, finally looking down at me, and then he froze. His eyes widened. His mouth opened slightly. The surgical instrument in his hand trembled. "Dr. Morrison?" he whispered. The entire OR went silent. Every nurse, every technician, everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at him. Then at me. Emily's face went white. "What are you? Sarah Morrison?" Dr. Richardson's voice was louder now, filled with something between shock and anger. "Dr. Sarah Morrison? Is that you?" I tried to speak, but the preoperative medication was making everything foggy. I managed a small nod. Dr. Richardson turned to Emily. His face was rigid. "This is Dr. Sarah Morrison. The Dr. Sarah Morrison." One of the older nurses gasped. "Dr. Morrison from here? The Dr. Morrison?" "Yes," Dr. Richardson said, his voice tight. "The woman who was head of surgery at this hospital for 15 years. The woman who trained half the surgical staff currently working here. The woman who he turned back to me, and I could see moisture in his eyes. The woman who sat with me for 3 hours after I lost my first patient and told me I was going to be a great surgeon anyway." Emily was shaking her head. "I didn't. She didn't tell anyone. Why would she have to announce who she is?" Dr. Richardson's voice was sharp now. "Emily, this woman taught me everything I know. She's the reason I'm standing in this OR. She's the reason half the surgeons at this hospital have jobs. And you're charging her $50,000? "Hospital policy," Emily started. "Hospital policy," another voice joined in. "Dr. Patricia Chen, the anesthesiologist. Emily, Dr. Morrison donated over $2 million to this hospital's new surgical wing. The wing we're standing in right now. Her name is on a plaque in the lobby." I'd forgotten about that. Robert and I had made the donation 5 years ago, shortly before he got sick. We wanted to give back to the place where we'd both worked for so many years. Dr. Richardson pulled off his surgical gloves. "I'm not operating under these circumstances, not until we fix this." He turned to one of the nurses. "Get the hospital administrator on the phone, now." "Dr. Richardson." "We can't just stop," Emily protested. "I'm the attending surgeon, Emily. This is my OR. And I'm not touching a scalpel until Dr. Morrison is treated with the respect she deserves." The room erupted in a flurry of activity. Someone was making phone calls. Nurses were whispering to each other. Through my medication haze, I could see Emily standing there, frozen, her face a mask of shame and horror. Dr. Richardson came to my side, taking my hand. "Dr. Morrison, I am so sorry. If any of us had known you were the patient, this never would have happened." "It's okay," I mumbled, the drugs making my tongue thick. "It's not okay," he said firmly. "It's not okay at all." The next hour was a blur. The hospital administrator arrived, a man I vaguely remembered from my retirement party. His face went pale when he saw me on the table. Voices were raised. Words like disgraceful and unacceptable, an investigation floated through my consciousness. At some point, they gave me more medication, and I slipped into darkness. When I woke up, I was in a private recovery room, not the standard recovery area with curtains between beds, but an actual room with a door and a window looking out at the city. Dr. Richardson was sitting in a chair next to my bed. "Hey," he said softly when he saw my eyes open. "How are you feeling?" I touched my abdomen gently. 4 small bandages. The surgery was done. Sore, I admitted, but okay. The surgery went perfectly. No complications. "You'll be back to your garden in 2 weeks." I started to ask about Emily, but he held up his hand. "She's been removed from your case. Dr. Chen and I completed the procedure. And Sarah, there's something you need to know." He pulled his chair closer. "The hospital administrator looked into your billing. Emily was the one who classified your surgery as elective and pushed it to the highest cost tier. She also rejected 3 requests from the billing department to offer you a payment plan or financial assistance." My heart sank. I'd hoped, somehow, that there'd been a mistake, a computer error, anything but the confirmation that my granddaughter had deliberately made this difficult for me. "Why?" I whispered. "I don't know," Dr. Richardson said gently. "But it's being addressed." The hospital is refunding the $50,000. The surgery and all related costs are being covered by the hospital's charitable care program, and Emily," he paused, "Emily is being suspended pending an investigation into patient care ethics violations." "No," I said quickly, trying to sit up. "That's not necessary. Sarah." His voice was firm. "What she did was wrong, not just to you, but to every patient who comes through these doors expecting compassionate care. You taught us better than this. You taught her better than this." Tears rolled down my face, not from pain, but from the weight of it all. The betrayal, the cruelty, and underneath it, still, somehow, love for the little girl she'd once been. Over the next few days, as I recovered in that private room, other former colleagues came to visit. Nurses who remembered me, doctors I'd trained, the physical therapist who'd worked with Robert during his final illness. Each one expressed shock and anger at how I'd been treated. Each one shared a story about something I'd taught them or a way I'd helped them. I'd forgotten so many of these moments, small kindnesses that had seemed insignificant at the time but had clearly meant something to them. On the third day, Marcus came. He looked exhausted. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. I had no idea it was this bad. Emily told me you were having routine surgery, that everything was fine. She didn't tell me about the cost, about any of it." "Where is she?" I asked. "Home. Suspended without pay for 2 weeks while the hospital reviews her conduct. And Sarah, I need to tell you something." He sat down heavily. "This isn't the first time. There have been other complaints. Patients saying she's cold, dismissive. Families feeling like she doesn't care. I thought it was just the stress of the job, but now you're wondering who she really is," I finished softly. He nodded. "She's not the woman I married. Or maybe she is, and I just didn't want to see it." We sat in silence for a moment. Then I asked the question I'd been afraid to voice. "What made her change, Marcus? What did I miss?" He shook his head slowly. "I think success did this. The money, the status, the respect. She started measuring everything by what it cost and what it was worth. Even relationships, even family." After he left, I lay there thinking about all the times I'd tried to teach Emily about the true meaning of being a doctor. It's not about the prestige or the salary. It's about the sacred trust between healer and patient. It's about seeing the person, not just the disease. Somewhere along the way, she'd forgotten that. Or maybe she'd never really learned it at all. Dr. Richardson discharged me on the 4th day. He personally drove me home, helped me into the house, made sure I had everything I needed. "I'll check on you tomorrow," he promised. "And Sarah, thank you for everything you taught me, for making me the doctor I am today." After he left, I walked slowly through my empty house. It felt different somehow, smaller, quieter. I'd thought I was doing okay before, but now I realized I'd just been existing, going through the motions. Waiting. For what? For Emily to remember she had a grandmother who loved her? For some sign that the years I'd invested in our relationship meant something? My phone rang. It was Emily. I stared at her name on the screen for a long moment before answering. "Grandma." Her voice was small, broken. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I waited. Let her continue. "I don't know what happened to me. I don't know when I became this person. I was so angry at you for being the legendary Dr. Morrison, for being the one everyone remembered and respected. I thought I had to prove myself, had to be better, had to show everyone I wasn't just riding on your coattails, and instead, I became this, Emily. No, please let me finish. I was jealous. Jealous of your reputation, of the way people lit up when they talked about you. And instead of being proud, instead of being grateful that you paved the way for me, I resented you, and I treated you horribly because of it." She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. "I'm taking a leave of absence from the hospital. I'm going to get help. Therapy. I need to figure out how I lost myself. But Grandma, I know I don't deserve it, but I need you to know. I love you. I've always loved you. Even when I was too proud and stupid to show it." I sat down slowly in my favorite chair, the one Robert used to tease me about because it was worn and ugly but perfectly comfortable. "I love you too, Emily," I said quietly. "I always will. But love isn't enough if you don't respect someone, if you don't value them. That's what I learned from all this. I know. And I'm going to work on being someone worthy of your love again. It might take time. Take all the time you need, I told her. I'll be here. But I knew things would never be quite the same. How could they be? Some fractures heal, but the scar remains. 3 months later, I was in my garden, pulling weeds around the tomato plants. The surgery scars had healed completely. I felt stronger than I had in years. A car pulled up. Dr. Richardson got out, but he wasn't alone. A woman was with him, tall, elegant, about my age, with silver hair pulled back in a loose bun. "Sarah," he called, walking toward me with a broad smile. "I have someone I'd like you to meet. This is Dr. Patricia Reeves. She's the new director of the surgical education program at Memorial Presbyterian. Patricia, this is Dr. Sarah Morrison." Patricia extended her hand. "It's an honor. Dr. Richardson has told me so much about you. I was hoping you might consider coming out of retirement, at least part-time. We need experienced surgeons to mentor the residents, to teach them what medicine is really about." I looked down at my dirt-covered hands, then back at this woman with hope in her eyes. For the first time in years, I felt something stir inside me. Not just surviving, not just existing, but actual purpose. "Tell me more," I said. And just like that, a new chapter began. Not the ending I'd expected when I lay on that operating table, betrayed and alone. But maybe, sometimes, the best endings are the ones we never see coming. Emily and I talk now. Not often, but regularly. She's working as a volunteer at a free clinic while she completes her therapy and ethics training. She has a long way to go, but she's trying, really trying. Marcus told me she cries sometimes when she thinks about what she did. Good. She should cry. We should all cry when we fail to live up to the people we're meant to be. But here's what I learned through all of this. Respect isn't automatic just because someone shares your blood. It's earned through actions, through choices, through how you treat people when you have power over them. And sometimes, when those you love fail you, the universe sends someone else to remind you what you're worth. I'm teaching again now. 3 days a week at Memorial Presbyterian, working with residents, showing them not just how to hold a scalpel, but how to hold a patient's hand. How to see the person behind the diagnosis. How to balance confidence with compassion. One of my students, a young woman from Kenya, stopped me after class last week. "Dr. Morrison," she said, "I have to tell you something. When I was deciding whether to come to Memorial Presbyterian, I read about you, about your career, your innovations in minimally invasive techniques, your dedication to patient care. You're the reason I chose this hospital. You're the reason I became a surgeon." I thought about Emily, about how she'd seen my legacy as competition rather than inspiration. And I thought about this young woman who saw it as something to aspire to. "Thank you," I told her. "But you know what? You're going to create your own legacy, and it's going to be just as important as anyone else's. Maybe more so." She smiled, and I saw in her eyes the same passion I'd had 40 years ago when I was young and idealistic and believed I could change the world one patient at a time. Maybe I did change the world, just not in the way I expected. The other day, I was sitting in the hospital cafeteria, having lunch with Dr. Richardson and Dr. Chen, when Emily walked in. She was in regular clothes, not scrubs. She saw us, and I could see her hesitate, debating whether to approach. I raised my hand, gestured to the empty chair at our table. She came over slowly, nervously. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hi," I replied. Dr. Richardson and Dr. Chen excused themselves, giving us privacy. Emily sat down across from me. She looked different, softer somehow, more uncertain, but also more real. "I start back next month," she said. "Limited hours, supervised cases only. I have to rebuild trust with everyone." "Good," I said simply. "Grandma, I know I keep saying this, but I really am." "I know," I interrupted. "And Emily, I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to move forward despite the memory." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "That's fair." We sat there for a while, not saying much. But it was a start. Not of going back to what we were, but of building something new. Something maybe stronger. Because it was forged in the fire of hard truth. Later that evening, as I was leaving the hospital, I passed by the donor wall in the main lobby. There it was, the plaque with Robert's and my name, the Morrison Surgical Wing. In gratitude for decades of dedicated service and generous support, I stood there, remembering the day we'd made that donation. Robert had squeezed my hand and said, "They'll remember you, Sarah. Long after we're gone, they'll remember the good you did here." He was right. They did remember. Not because of money or plaques or awards, but because of the lives I'd touched, the doctors I'd trained, the patients I'd saved, the standard of care I'd helped establish. That's the legacy that matters, not what your family thinks of you, but what you give to the world when no one's watching. When it's hard, when it costs you something, and sometimes, if you're very lucky, you get to start over. At 68 years old, I'm beginning again. Teaching, healing, living. The judge didn't freeze in my story. The surgeon did. But the principle is the same. Who you are matters more than who you know. And the respect you command isn't given, it's earned through decades of choices, of putting others first, of being the person you'd want in your corner when everything falls apart. Emily's learning that now. The hard way, but sometimes that's the only way lessons really stick. As for me, I'm finally understanding what Robert tried to tell me in those final months. It's never too late to write a new chapter. It's never too late to remember who you are and why you matter. And it's never too late to choose forgiveness, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because in the end, we're all just trying to find our way. Some of us stumble, some of us fall. But the measure of a person isn't whether they fall, it's whether they get back up and try to do better. I'm still trying. Emily's still trying. And maybe that's enough.